Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. My name again is JDavis. And, there's just so much going on in the economy. We really could run the show 8 hours a day, almost like CNN. We could do it 24 hours a day, but we can't. And there's always a story. And every once in a while, I like to dip back into our serial guest bag and talk to Peter Dunn, partner at Casner and Edwards, because he has always lots of stories, transactions, and deals that are going on in his entrepreneurial world. Welcome back, Peter.
Hey, how you doing, Jeffrey? Thanks for having me. Great to see you.
Oh, pleasure. Peter, what's going on in your world? I know you're always working on a lot of deals, and they're still going on in this economy.
They are. There's been, I think, a substantial uptick over the first and second quarters in activity. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's some pent up, I think, demand out there. I think there's a feeling that, the interest rates aren't going to go that much higher, that the government's not going to let the banks in California fail. And the other part of it that I think is driving things is, FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. Valuations on both the entrepreneur finance side and on the M&A side are down year over year, and they're down fairly substantially. And I think that there's that in a buyer's market, there's a view that this is an opportunity to pick up some assets at some attractive prices.
Well, that's good to know, because I think everybody's always wondering, is the market gonna cool down? And you're saying it's not for you. It's actually heating up. Despite, let's say, a higher interest rates from a year ago, we're still seeing deals being done. I actually think that's not a bad idea. If I were talking to, let's say, a business owner, I'm going to date myself, let's say in the baby boomer range, I would be telling them, you need to be planning for the transition of life, the next step. And also, the economy is going to change so much in the next 4 to 5 years. I'm not sure you're in for another round of major economic changes and business changes. So if you can get yourself liquid, I think it's a good idea.
Right. I mean, you're always going to come across people who think they've had the eternal genes and they're always going to be around. But I think making a sensible planned exit and looking at the holistic picture the way you described is the way to go. And then you've got to look at your potential buyers out there, which are competitors, people in adjacent industries, financial buyers like private equity firms. And then you can look internally, right? A lot of times, somebody wants to keep a legacy and they feel like the people that they've built up around them are the best people to maintain that legacy and give them, a fair-ish price. So oftentimes you'll see a sale to management or, a partial sale, partial gift to family members. So it's definitely something to think about, and it's definitely something to plan for, both personally, operationally, from a tax standpoint as well.
And it fits the life cycle of the millennial, of the baby boomer, and the different needs that happen. The other thing that I think that's been very popular to talk about and see in the news lately has been entrepreneurs and leaders understanding what it means to follow rules. I'm sure you have an opinion about that as well. Not just an opinion, but as an expert.
Yeah, I mean, with entrepreneurs, one of the things that I do a fair amount of, and I gave a presentation last week on it, is compliance with the securities laws when you're raising money, right? So basically, the securities laws were put in place after the Great Depression in 1933 and 1934. You have the Securities Act, which governs basically issuances of securities, and the Exchange Act, which governs basically capital markets and how they behave. And those were all put in place after the crash in 1929, and they're still the laws that we live with today. And when you're an entrepreneur, you're not going public right out of the gate. You're going to raise money privately. And the two biggest rules that you can keep in mind for that is, one, you need to basically only deal with wealthy people or well-heeled entities, because otherwise you're going to have to register the securities with the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is a long and expensive process. And the other part is disclosures. You can't hide the ball. You can't make material misstatements of fact. You basically do those two things, and with some other technical requirements, you're going to be kind of within the lanes of compliance. And when you swerve outside of those, depending upon the nature of the infraction and sometimes the frequency, you can find yourself with anything from a rescission right where the investors get to automatically get their money back. So if you sold to an unaccredited investor, which is somebody who is doesn't meet the wealth requirements under the applicable rules, or you defrauded them, you could find yourself in civil, regulatory, or even criminal situations where, depending on the gravity of the offense.
Well, that sounds pretty serious. And a lot of entrepreneurs just don't understand what it means to know the rules and then follow them. It's usually after the fact that they get in trouble. Isn't that true?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's amplified that is the internet and social media, right? People are, they want to post everything about their lives. They want to post everything about their business. They want to post everything, from how much money they're trying to raise to how much, what they had for lunch that day. And one of the things about when you're raising money in a private offering is that you can't engage in general solicitation and advertising, right? And what that means is that if you're raising money, you want to do it quietly, and you want to do it through people or people you otherwise have a connection with. And what you don't want to do is to say, "Hey, everybody, my company's doing great, and we're going to raise." We want to raise $500,000 so that we can do product development, and you put it out there on the internet for everybody to see. You've just violated the general solicitation and advertising rules, which preclude you taking advantage of an exemption for private sales that goes to the registration requirements that I talked about. So I think having discipline and knowing the rules is really important, because if that happens, those folks, in addition to a potential regulatory enforcement action that you could get from federal or state regulators, you could also give all your investors are going to have a right of rescission because you didn't follow the rules.
Wow. And do you see that has that happened in your experience?
Oh yeah, all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I don't see it every day, but there are a lot of unexperienced people, sometimes younger, who are used to kind of digital culture, and they're used to posting things all the time, and a lot of them, it's about the likes, right? They want to get the likes, they want to get boosted up on social media, that and there's some merit to that. It increases your profile, everything else, but in this particular area, you need to be really careful, because if you do that, basically, you want to talk to experienced counsel to see what you can do to fix it, which is basically hold your horses and wait for the ripple effect of your violation to dissipate.
Not something I would want to go through. And I bet you it's also very expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier to come in and talk to somebody who knows what they're doing and say, "Here's what I want to do," and let them guide you through it, than try to pick up the pieces and clean up the mess on aisle 4 later. It's a lot easier, it's a lot cheaper, and it causes you. I mean, look, if you have to wait before you can raise the money and you have bills to pay, what are you going to do? You're in a pickle, and you put yourself there by not reaching out and getting counsel beforehand.
And I've seen legal put small businesses out of business because there is business disruption, there is instability it creates within the culture. So it does have other ripple effects in terms of the operations and the viability of a company.
Yeah, I mean, you need the equity to, you don't want to miss a payroll because you're going to be personally responsible for that. You don't want to miss a loan payment because the bank's going to come after you. You miss you get outside of terms with a key supplier, and your stuff isn't showing up for you to keep running your business. So it's really important to understand the rules and to abide by them, so that you can do the things you need to do without those kinds of disruptions.
Casner and Edwards, how many attorneys in the firm?
So we're growing. We're over 50 attorneys now. We've been around for 40 years. We've got corporate attorneys, we've got employment, real estate, litigation, we've got tax. We also have a bankruptcy practice, nonprofit practice, as well as a family law group. So we're trying to, in a very active trust and estates group as well. So we're trying to be there for the business and business owners so that we can give them, kind of the 360 services that they need for both themselves personally and for their business.
Very good. And if someone wants to contact you or the firm Casner and Edwards, how would they find you?
Yeah, it's CasnerEdwards.com, and I am Dunn, Dunn, at CasnerEdwards.com.
And I'm going to check in with you every once in a while for radio entrepreneurs as the year goes on, correct?
Looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
Remind everybody this was Peter Dunn from partner at Casner and Edwards. My name is Jeffrey Davis, and this is Radio Entrepreneurs.